Welcome, everyone. Tonight is the Pioneer Valley Regional School District School Committee meeting here to interview for the interim superintendent position. It is Thursday, August 19th, 2021. It is now 6:22 p.m. We are meeting here in the PVRS library as well as on Google Meet. Link to view the school committee meeting will be available on our website, pvrsdk12.org, or you can view it live on facebook.com/BNCTV. The public was welcome to attend in person or via Google Meet, but in the event of an issue with the Google Meet, the public meeting in person shall continue to proceed. This meeting is being held via Google Meet and in person in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We did not have any citizens that wrote in that they would like to comment ahead of time. I don't see any citizens that would like to speak here in the room. So we will start by calling our meeting to order at 6:23 p.m. and we'll go around the table here for a roll call vote.
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick.
Mike Townsley, Bernardston.
Alan Genovese, Warwick.
Michelle Geruso, Leiden.
Raina Dastu, Northfield.
Robin Knipe, Leiden.
And we have David Young here on Google Meet. And Julie Burke, Northfield.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as I stated, there are no citizens' comments, so we can go ahead and begin our meeting here with interviewing our first candidate. We have Dr. Carol Learned Miller. Yep.
So Julie, can we just take a minute to introduce the tool? So that you've all had a chance to look at the tool now, it's modeled somewhat on the tool that was used for the business administrator. And I just wanted to mention that a big point of discussion at the meeting on Tuesday was that we're looking for different qualities and abilities in an interim than we will be for a permanent position. And that guided some of the questions that we chose. On the last page, there should be a list of some of the qualities that we thought would be helpful or important to be looking for in our candidate tonight.
On the back.
We're not looking for someone with a grand vision to implement in the next year. So, just to summarize that, we want someone who can hit the ground running, who's not going to have a real steep learning curve, someone who can learn the system in the district quickly, can work with the existing team, and just keep things running smoothly. So.
Great, thank you. And hello there, Dr. Miller.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. Is it okay for me to say hello to everyone?
Absolutely.
I'm Robin.
Yeah.
Careful of the cords.
Raina.
Yeah, be careful. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I have 3 kids, so I'm used to it.
I know.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Julie, nice to meet you.
Hi. Hello, Nathan.
Karen. Nice to meet you.
Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you.
Assume this is for me.
That is for you, yes. You get this front and center stage.
Would you like me to keep my mask while interviewing as well?
You certainly can yes, remove it when you're answering your questions. We're actually, probably going to do the same when we're asking the questions, so thank you.
Good, sure.
So we'll just start by introducing ourselves to you. So I'm Julie Burke. I am from the town of Northfield. We have 4 towns that make up our district, and I'm the chair of the committee. And then we have
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield.
Karen O'Neill from Leiden.
Nathan Swartz from Warwick.
Mike Townsley from Bernardston.
Alan Genovese from Warwick.
Michelle Geruso from Leiden.
Raina Dastu from Northfield.
Robin Knipe from Leiden.
I'm Claire Brennan, Union President.
Renee Kier.
Here
David Young.
we are. So we were planning on going around the room here and each asking you a question that we prepared.
Perfect.
Great.
Well, I guess I'll start. And then we'll start, and then we'll go to
Julie, do you want me to introduce myself first, or do you want me to answer questions
I think
first?
that was
Whatever.
actually probably the first question.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself. The first question is why you're seeking this interim superintendent position, and then how do you see your particular skill sets working effectively for us, and why do your skills match our needs?
Perfect. That is a perfect setup for my introduction. Thank you. So good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you. It's really a great honor. So I want to start by sharing a little bit about why I'm here and why I think that I am a really good fit for this job. So first, I've lived in the Pioneer Valley for most of my adult life. I first moved to Northampton in 1997 to attend Smith College. 12 years ago, I settled here with my husband when he became a tenured professor at UMass. He studies computer science, and we have 3 children who go to the public schools in Amherst. So I realized the other day I began my career in education 25 years ago as a 3rd grade teacher, which I loved. And then I served both as an elementary and a middle school principal. Later, I taught courses at both Smith and UMass, focusing really on math education, teaching teachers how to teach math as well as leadership. After that, I had the really tremendous honor of overseeing K through 12 teaching and learning in the Amherst Regional Public Schools, while simultaneously working towards my license as a superintendent. So as part of the superintendency training, I participated in all aspects of the job of superintendent, all of the work pertaining to collaboration with town officials, collaborating with school committee members, as well as budgeting. Since earning my doctorate, I've helped to lead an education nonprofit, which, it seems very different than a district, but really it's been perfect preparation. It has allowed me to train and coach principals, to supervise and really inspire staff to be their very best, to advise leaders in their school committees all over the nation. My nonprofit is in 37 states. So in all of those states, there are leaders that we work with, and we help them really solve some of the nation's most challenging problems, be it achievement gaps, issues with their budgets, whatever it may be. Finally, the other way that I've really been training as a superintendent through this other role is acting as part of my organization's senior leadership team. And that really has included many things, including developing the 5-year strategic plan. And the other thing that I assist with is oversight of an $8 million budget. So while I really adore my job and I really learn a great deal every day from my colleagues as well as the leaders in the field, I'm really eager to apply all that I've learned around the country here locally, to get back to your original question. In terms of who I am as a leader, I am very collaborative, and I believe strongly the key to making any necessary change is first by forging trusting relationships, which I would seek to do with all of you. I would really start by listening and building those relationships, not only with you, but with school leaders and families. As superintendent, something that I commit to is being very visible in my role as chief instructional leader. And I would be spending time in the schools doing what I do best, supporting leaders and learning how we can better meet the needs of all of our students. Finally, I'll be visible in the greater community, sharing our work and hearing from our students and families what their dreams are for these schools. So throughout my career, I've always had 6 core values that have really, they have guided my work. So I believe as educators, we must provide high expectations for all students and nurturing individualized support students need to meet those high expectations. Engaging curriculum that centers standards alignment, deeper learning, cultural responsiveness, as well as real-world problem solving. Another of my core values is to commit to ongoing analysis of data to ensure equity and access to enriching opportunities for every child. Continuous improvement of teacher and leader practice through research, collaboration, professional learning, as well as instructional coaching. Very important to active partnerships with family and community. And finally, meaningful relationships with one another and our students to build trust, to build equity, and to ensure social emotional well-being. So through my research and conversations over the last couple of weeks, learning about your district, I have learned that you are looking for someone who can hit the ground running, for sure, next week, and quickly learn and respond to school leaders, teachers, and families' needs. Someone who can solve challenging problems creatively and effectively. Someone who is collaborative and who is a very strong communicator. Someone who is visible in the community in all 4 towns. Is deeply committed to exceptional instruction that incorporates social emotional learning at every level, and somebody who truly is visionary, who can truly unite all 4 towns. I believe these are the very strengths that I have brought to my leadership roles as a principal, central office administrator, as well as a leader of a nonprofit. For this reason, I do believe this role is an excellent match for my skill set, and I would be honored to have the opportunity to serve as your interim superintendent. Together, I do believe we can make Pioneer Valley Regional School District a true model of what learning in a learning organization can be. Thank you.
Thank you. What do you perceive as the superintendent's role in the community?
So, first and foremost, the superintendent truly must keep students safe. They must keep students happy. So more than anything, I have to be sure that every single one of our students is safe, especially now during the pandemic. But most of the job really is about being the lead instructional learner. So really being the lead learner. So modeling, being a lifelong learner, visiting schools, visiting classrooms, really working with principals and other instructional leaders in the school to be sure that every student is really experiencing cognitive demand, that they are every day having an experience where they're thinking critically, they're learning state standards and beyond, they're really engaging. I'm a big fan of project-based learning, so really helping principals and teachers do their jobs to the best of their ability. So I think number one, safety and happiness. Number two, really ensuring that every child is learning on high levels. Number three, really working in collaboration with all of you. You will develop policy. I, with your help, will really execute. The other really important part of the superintendency is constant communication. Something that I pride myself on is people not having to wonder what is going on. Some of the best districts where I've coached leaders, that's been a real focus. You know, when I first come in, there's a lot of confusion. Nobody knows what's going on. So really figuring out what is the information that families need and really getting in front of it so they don't have to be asking for information, really getting whatever information they need to them before they have to seek it.
Thank you.
Given that our district will have multiple new administrators this year, what are some of the ways that you can raise confidence among the staff, the students, and the community?
So, one of the things that I do believe is a really big skill is building really highly effective teams. So this would not be the first time that I came into a community that was faced with some turmoil and a lot of challenge. So one of the things that I would do with the leadership team is first really build those strong relationships, get to know one another personally. So something that I shared were personal core values, but I would want to set as a leadership team, what are our core values? What are we going to live by? If we have hard decisions to make, what values will guide us? We would set norms, and we would set, really ambitious goals that I think would be inspiring to a new leadership team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Nathan Swartz, Warwick.
Hi, Nathan.
What does strong school-based leadership mean to you as an administrative issue and learning strategy? What is the proper balance between school-based management, central office supervision, and school committee policymaking and oversight?
So, first and foremost, the district has to provide coherence. So what we need to do is figure out what the laws are and really translate those laws into policy for the schools. So this is our role. The school level, what really needs to happen is classroom instruction and really assessing and meeting the needs of every single student in that classroom. So I think there has to be really strong coherence and consistency. Something that I have done and would do here is just be constantly in touch with school leaders so they didn't, feel alone wondering what it was that, what's the mask policy? I mean, there's so many things that I'm sure leaders are wondering right now. So really working with all of you to understand the latest regulations from the state, understanding things like CDC guidelines, translating that into policy, sharing that with principals, but meeting and talking to principals and teachers regularly so it isn't just a one-way communication, that I'm also hearing what are the needs of students and teachers and principals, sharing that with all of you. So it really is guiding and influencing the policies that we set. Did I answer all parts of your question, Ethan?
Yeah, pretty much. How would you help engage the community, the families involved with all these things?
Totally. So this is really a strength of mine, communication. So again, I would be very visible. I was sort of famous as a principal for kind of being everywhere all at once. So attending students' events, hosting forums for families. When I've been in the central office before, I've had blogs and regular newsletters. Really being creative about ways to really gather feedback from families. Going to where they are, not expecting families to come see me in this room, but really going to all 4 towns, finding different ways to interact and hear from families. Something that we've learned in the research is sort of old style family engagement. consistently works for some families, but there are certain families, those that have been largely marginalized, low-income families, families of color, that those sort of traditional policies really don't work for. So really being creative, talking to parents and saying, what are the questions that you're wondering? What kind of forum would be of interest? What ways would you really want to be engaged? So not sort of making all the decisions for families, really getting new ideas from them as well.
And not to put words in your mouth, but working with community leaders as well in the individual
Of course,
towns?
of
Okay.
course, because community leaders, whether they're running nonprofit organizations, whether they are local government, they are also, just the way that I'll have easy access to hearing from teachers and principals, they will have access to hearing voices that I might not otherwise.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Mike Townsley.
Hi.
Consider this scenario. You are proposing a highly controversial program. The school committee is seemingly divided on this issue, and a group has formed to oppose the new program. You strongly believe that this program will highly be beneficial to the students. What steps would you take to promote your program and engage the community?
Really very realistic problem. Thanks, Mike. So what I would try to do, and I think I've gotten better at this with age, because I do have strong beliefs about what's best for children, and I really, really try to follow the research. But something that I think that I've learned over the past decade is that I will get better in my job if I can really understand deeply what other people's concerns are. Because there's some really good reason they have those concerns. So what I would do is have a variety of conversations, one-on-one conversations, probably conversations here as well, just different formats to try to really deeply understand what the concerns were and figure out, is there some way that as the leader of the school system I can address those concerns? Is it something fiscal that's really bringing a concern? What is the concern, and really try to address it head on? Certainly I know really from coaching leaders across the country and my own work as a leader, very often there is a financial reason that there can be a divide. Something that I've done in prior jobs, including the job I'm in right now, is seek other funding sources. So I've been able to do really creative things. The second school where I was a principal in Cambridge, we really wanted to do what we have here, have some green space for children. So we decided to build a garden in the middle of the school, and it was very expensive. Not something taxpayers really should have to pay, in my opinion. So we raised money, and were able to pay for that. The teachers really felt strongly at that very same school. The students were studying Mandarin. That was their foreign language. So they studied it for 10 years, but they didn't really see any point to studying it. They didn't know anyone who spoke Mandarin. So what I did was I fundraised, and the 8th graders were able to go to China during their 8th grade year. So something that I believe really strongly is you have to understand where everybody's coming from. There isn't a parent or a person who spends their time serving on the school committee who doesn't care very deeply with their heart for children. So part of my role, I think, is to really try to deeply understand where people are coming from, and if there is some way to build consensus, to build it by really resolving whatever concerns people in the room do have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Hi.
Hi.
So tell us about a situation where you were decisive and how it worked out for you.
Let's see. Something that I'm really proud of, that I was decisive about, but I still did it collaboratively over time. Once again, as a principal, something that I heard very often from teachers was they had a wonderful professional learning. We had really, really strong instructional coaches. But they didn't have time to teach what they had learned to teach. So what is it that we can do? I mean, clearly, we really needed more time. The other thing that they really wanted was to have more time talking to one another. So I was at a meeting with the superintendent, and he mentioned a brand new state grant for expanding school learning time. So my decisive moment was raising my hand and saying, please consider us. So this was probably 15 years ago. We ended up being one of the first ELT schools in the state. So I was decisive just in, being considered. But what I did very slowly and thoughtfully was talk to everybody involved. I worked very closely with the union president. I talked to all the teachers. I surveyed them in multiple ways at multiple times. Another group of stakeholders, obviously, who were very interested in this decision were families. So I believe, I really heard the teachers and what they needed to meet the needs for our students. They had been trained in really exceptional best practices for both math as well as ELA, but they literally didn't have time in the schedule to do it. So I think being innovative, raising my hand for, all kinds of really innovative opportunities, but before committing, really being sure to involve all stakeholders in being sure that this new change or decision is something that truly is a good fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you lead the district, how will you use data to prioritize the use of resources, including money, technology, facilities, and human capital?
Good question. So this was really, this was what my doctoral studies were really about. And it's something that my organization does every day. So what I would do is become very, very familiar with the data for the district. Would probably be one of the very first things that I would do. The data I'm interested, of course, is the budget, which I've already reviewed. But certainly student achievement data, I've been able to review the MCAS, but I'm sure there's much more formative data that's here in the district. So the first thing that I would do is really carefully review all of the data. And then what I would do with it is with a committee, really do a process that we do in our organization, which is a continuous improvement review of data where you review it, but as we all know, you can't fix everything all at once. I think one of the things that I've helped leaders across the country to understand is it's just as important to decide what not to do as what to do. So the process that we use, and I think I would do something very similar here, is really raising what are the most urgent needs. We've seen all of this data. Probably there will be 50 or 100 needs. But what are the things that the community really feels are most urgent? Then creating an action plan. This is not years long. I know you have a very good strategic plan that I've been able to familiarize myself with, but shorter. We've really been encouraging leaders to do 12-week action plans where they take a piece of data that they have uncovered and they really decide what it is, what are the goals that they want to achieve, who's going to be responsible for what, actually diving in and trying to quickly see a result, and then in 12 weeks' time, see how, you should be reviewing along the way, but certainly at the end of that period, reviewing, did we meet our goals? What should we try next? Should we continue? Should we stop and really try something different? Something I think school systems sometimes get in their own way. I think just sort of keep doing the same thing over and over, see the same results and are surprised. And I think really being flexible, using the data flexibly to think, to be smart, to hear all sorts of creative solutions, from school committee members, parents, and students certainly too, as well as teachers, and then giving an action plan a try. At the very same time, we also have to keep an eye on really long-term budgeting and really long-term strategic planning. So never taking your eye off those two long-term plans, but at the same time, really being nimble, constantly looking at data and being nimble and smart about what it is that you see.
Thank you for that. I love process improvement.
Great. We'll be a good team.
Given the stress in the lives of young people today and the social, academic, and even financial pressures they face, how can educators in general and a superintendent in particular have an impact on the emotional well-being of students?
Great question. So something that I did do as a leader, a school leader, was create a real wraparound approach. So within our school, we had many services, things to help parents, courses to help parents. The other thing that I did was fundraise again to have an additional social worker who really was able, the adjustment counselor that we had on staff was wonderful. But because we had so many IEPs, and I know there's a high percentage of students on IEPs here, she really was limited in how much she could do extra, such as training for teachers, home visits, groups for students who, perhaps had experienced trauma but weren't actually on an IEP. So I think being very thoughtful, creative with funding, raising those extra dollars that we might need, especially now that children and teachers have, the whole world has really had a shared trauma with COVID, and it continues. So I think being really creative, seeing the school as sort of the center of the community in terms of providing social emotional well-being and support, I think is very important. The other thing that, I think that none of us do enough is listen to students. Something I would really love to do here is have a student advisory. So really hearing directly from students what it is that they need, how are they feeling, are they experiencing joy in school, do they feel there's an adult who knows them, do they have an adult, if they're suffering from depression or having a hard day, they can turn to. So really keeping my ear to the ground, so to speak, by talking directly to students. But also, one of the things that I love about your district and makes it so appealing to me is the small size. So being able to visit the schools, and not only the principal and the teachers, talking to the social workers, talking to the student support teams. What is it that they see they need? Each school's going to be different. Do they need training for teachers in social emotional learning? Do they need more counseling? So just talking to the people in the schools who will really know best what it is the students and families need.
Thank you.
Sure.
How have you built the lines of communication with the various district stakeholders, such as your leadership team, the faculty, community leaders, business interests, families, and the media?
So I think I mentioned this a little bit before. Something that I did as part of learning how to be a superintendent. So when I was getting my certification, I was supporting Maria Garrick, who at the time was the Amherst Public Schools superintendent. And really something that I did for her was think about how can we really hear from everyone better? So we got really creative. As I said before, we had a blog. We started writing every Friday a newsletter. Would certainly want to communicate with families at least once a week, just letting them know what's happening. Were there any big decisions made at school committee? What are the highlights from the schools that I saw when I visited? What are the summer programs that are being offered? So really thinking through who are all the stakeholder groups. What are all the stakeholder groups? What are the questions they are wondering? And finding a variety of ways to communicate. Some of those would certainly be in-person forums, in-person, masked and distant, of course. But having some ways that people can count on. That's actually still a routine in Amherst, that every Friday the superintendent shares a letter with all the updates. It goes to the whole community, it goes to the teachers. Certainly I would also have communications regularly with teachers that were really meant for teachers and educators. Something that I do see as part of my role as superintendent and as lead instructional leader is to be aware of the latest research and to share that with teachers. So though I want to communicate with everyone weekly, I do imagine the type of information being slightly different. And certainly the media, I mean, I've always had an open door policy, whatever role I'm in. So, I see the media as really helpful to share the really good work that we're doing. This is a little tangent, but, just reading everything that I could about the district, I know there's really an enrollment issue, losing, 72 kids, I think, last year. So I think really partnering with the media, doing exceptional work in the classrooms, but partnering with the media so they see the deeper learning happening and can help me share that with the wider community as a way to bring families back.
Thank you.
Did I answer all parts of your question? Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Robin. So how do you keep your school committee informed? And in particular, what's your strategy around issues that are your responsibility, but where the school committee may also have an interest? What has been your response and feedback, and how do you use that feedback?
So I am a person, I know it maybe sounds a little cheesy, I really am a lifelong learner. And I really, really encourage feedback. I don't know another way to learn or get better. So I welcome feedback from all of you, whether it's tonight or in the future. So I think, again, this goes back to constant communication. What I would want to do is have regular meetings. Usually there's subcommittees as a way to have regular meetings. But in addition, having regular meetings with all of you to really keep you updated. Things that are really in my purview, though they're things that I would be overseeing. you also will be able to really help me communicate the good news about the district. So I really seek to tell you everything that's going on. If I see an amazing third grade lesson, I really want all of you to know so you can share that experience as well. Both feel proud, but share the good news about what our teachers are doing in the schools. So I think regular communication in different ways, sharing information with you that isn't that's sort of outside of things that you might be overseeing, things that are more in my purview, but I'd want you to know the successes and the challenges that we're facing.
Thank you.
How do you envision the relationship between policymaking and the budget process?
So, really, I believe the budget is extremely reflective of whatever our beliefs are as a district. So the budget, if we have priorities, for equity or really deeper learning or having as many hours outside as we can, whatever it is that we decide that we really believe as a community, that's going to be reflected both in policy and in budgeting. So something that I would want to do with all of you, I've read your mission and your vision. I think setting core values would be very important as well. Then once you have your core values, they can really guide you in your policy making, because it can be difficult. Some of the hardest decisions that happen in a district happen right here in this room or in subcommittees in it. So really having those core values really guide policy making. And then once policy is set and core values are realized, those things will then guide the budget decisions. I know you recently had a challenging decision about foreign language learning. So something that I've found to be helpful, both in my own work and also working with leaders in other districts, is thinking through what are the things that we really believe in, and doing that ahead of the budgeting process, so we're not going to be able to afford everything that we'd hope to do. But if we know, these three things are our priorities reflected in our policies, we'll prioritize them in the budget process as well.
Thank you.
The citizens of our regional school district demand value for their tax dollars and transparency and fiscal accountability. What has been your history working with municipal officials like a town manager, finance committee, and select boards in supporting your budget? So really probably the majority of my experience was in Amherst supporting the superintendent there. So that, was incredibly valuable. And I was able to participate in all those municipal meetings, whether they were large town meetings or, there were a variety of budgetary committees. So really participating in that way. I do believe strongly in transparent governance and transparent budgeting. So I really hear that question, and I do think it's important that our budget documents are very clear, they're available to the public, that we make decisions in a way that we communicate to the wider public about why we're making them, and that before we do make them, that we get a lot of input from the community as well. A story that I will tell you is my current experience. When I first started as chief of staff, there was a budget that was far from being transparent. It was very, very hard to understand
So as part of the senior leadership team, we have worked really hard to create a budget that somebody who is a CFO or somebody who is more of a lay person and doesn't spend all their day thinking about numbers can really understand. So that is something that I would want to do here. Be sure the budget, the decisions were clear. The budget itself was posted and shared in ways that were really clear to your average community member, and that we were really clearly communicating the reasons we were making the budget decisions that we were.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, and finally, do you have any questions for us?
So, what do you see as the greatest strengths and the greatest challenges here in your district?
You have challenges.
So I'm not only a school committee member, I do have children in the district. So my glass is half full. So I truly see our communities, all 4 towns, as just gems where you're able to raise children in such a loving atmosphere. I moved here purposely, sought out the community for that reason. And the children, my children have had a wonderful experience here in the district. So I see as the greatest strength the community, the dedicated teachers and staff that we have, the small district, so you really have a sense of, it's almost a family kind of environment, so those are what I see as the greatest strengths. The greatest challenges I see are, and this is my personal opinion, but school choice and the ability for, I truly believe that we're all trying to do the very best we can with less and less funding, for the public school system every year. So, and I do believe in needing to be competitive. I think that that's a good thing. If we're all trying to have the very best curriculum or the very best sports program or the very best technology, that's wonderful. However, it shouldn't put us all against each other, because times will come and go, and certain districts will kind of come into favor and then it will wax and wane. So I don't want there to be such a detriment, to any district in Western Mass or the whole state. So I do see that as our biggest challenge, and I think getting the word out about what a wonderful place this is to send your kids to go to school has been a bit lost, in recent past. So,
Thank you.
Yes. I agree. Before I was on the school committee, I was a member of the faculty at this very school for 20 years. And I really believe that people or human capital are our greatest strength. That plus really working with where we are, recognizing the types of communities we have, cherishing our beautiful surroundings, and working to give students a sense that they belong in this place, that they can find their way here as well as they could find it anywhere else. And I think we need to communicate that to the wider public. And like Julie, I find especially the charter school issue a big challenge. I think it was more created for an urban setting, and in a county such as our own, it really ends up exacerbating what we see as a declining enrollment. And I wish we could let those people know who make that choice that there is a very good education available right here at home.
Thank you. That was beautifully said. I just want to say something about the choice piece, because I've felt that. It's really painful when you are giving what is really an exceptional education and nobody knows. When, again, another story from Cambridge, when I first arrived at this school, I had been a principal in San Francisco. We were moving home to the East Coast. And I arrived at the school, and I saw the graduating photo, and it only had 10 kids in it. I thought, oh my gosh, how could the graduating class only have 10 kids? Well, pretty soon I discovered the word on the street about my school was very, very negative. Nobody was choosing it. And really, I'd just been hired for a school that looked like it was closing soon. So what I did, and it's crazy, but I have a lot of wild ideas. I went with the kindergarten teachers in my school, and we went door to door for every nursery school family. We talked to them about the education they would get at our school. And it is now hard to get your child into that school. So that is something that I've really experienced. It can be very painful when you know what you have really is a good education, and people aren't choosing it because of sort of a misimpression. That's why I think it is really a communications problem. So I think being really creative about how we can certainly keep getting better. But what I hear over and over is there's really committed teachers here, really strong community. And part of what we really need to do to fix this is aggressively communicate what we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I guess that concludes our meeting this evening. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Do you mind if I say a fine word?
Not at all.
Have I
Go
taken
ahead.
up more than my time? Are you sure?
We are a bit over time, but you
Are
can
you
have
sure?
a couple more
Okay.
minutes. Sure.
Okay. So thank you for your time this evening. I so appreciate your thoughtful questions. In closing, I want to say that I'd be very honored to serve as your interim superintendent. I've done all aspects of the role, from managing a large budget to leading principals and teachers, to negotiating a new teacher contract, to district-wide data analysis, to creating a strategic plan, to communicating with families and working with a board. I have led work in a variety of rural areas and am keenly interested in the particular strengths and needs of rural communities. I also have experience leading in a regional district that I know has its very own special benefits and challenges, right? Finally, and importantly, this is a turbulent time for your district for a variety of reasons, including the pandemic, declining enrollment with a loss of 72 students and 455 over the last 10 years, and the loss of leaders, including your superintendent. I have personal experience increasing student enrollment and attracting and retaining really exceptional educators. I have a great deal of experience leading projects in all 4 areas of your strategic plan, including fiscal stability, reimagining and redesigning schools for deeper learning, which I loved to see, support for social emotional learning, and engaging community as partners in learning. I have served as a calming and really truly unifying leader for other communities during turbulent times. If chosen for this role, I'm committed to doing the very same for all of you. I will listen, I will be visible, I will solve our problems collaboratively and creatively, and I will communicate regularly and often. As a leader, your families will feel heard, and that their superintendent cares deeply about each of their children. So I hope to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's not right. Bye.
And I'm sorry I had to step out for a moment. I'm the administrator on call.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, no.
If that happens, that happens.
I'm wondering what you thought about just seeing Jim Bell on the screen.
yeah.
He just shows up.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jen. Hi.
Wow.
So we were welcome to have, I know that we're late. Well, actually, we did pretty well, but we used up our
Yeah.
discussion time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we did good.
would you like to save discussion for the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
By the way, questions were, I liked the questions. I thought that you guys did a great job.
Yes, you did a wonderful job with the questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Should we wait till Alan's back?
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
No.
He's probably telling her that, the building's falling down.
No, there he is. She left. I see him.
They're just temporary.
Yes, thank you, Joanne. You can bring Patricia in. All right.
And by the way, we don't have a superintendent.
Oh.
I'm glad you did it, but I just can't imagine what her face was like.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
No mercy. Right. Yeah. So Patricia had prepared our packets for us,
Yes, I saw
which
it.
was wonderful. Hi, Patricia.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, nice to see you again. Well, we thank you for our lovely packets here.
Oh, you got your packet.
Yes. So I think you already know a little bit about us, but we'll just go around the room and introduce ourselves. Although, is Alan?
I saw
Not
him
back
go
yet.
that way. He may have, so.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Julie Burke. I'm with the town of Northfield. We have 4 towns in our district, and I'm the chair of the school committee.
Thank you. Stephanie Winslow, Northfield.
Hi, Karen O'Neill of Leiden. Thank you.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick.
Nice to meet you, Nathan.
Townsley, Bernardston.
Hi, Mike.
Alan Genovese, Warwick.
Nice to meet you, Alan.
Michelle Geruso Leiden.
Hi, Michelle.
Raina Dastu, I'm from Northfield.
Robin Knipe, I'm from Leiden.
I'm Claire Brennan, I teach here, and I'm the union president.
Hi, Claire. Hi.
Renee Kier, past president and kindergarten teacher.
And someone on,
Yes, and then we have, you're right, we have Jim Bell. Jim can wave his hand.
Jim Bell, Bernardston.
Oh, we can hear him too.
hi, Jim. Nice to meet you.
And then David Young.
Where's David?
Hi, David Young.
Hi, David. Nice to meet you.
So Jim represents Bernardston and David represents Warwick.
Okay, great.
No, that's not true. David represents 4 towns. We all represent 4
Oh,
towns.
that's
yes.
very true. You're right. You're from Warwick.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Raina?
So I'll start off with the first question, and just asking why you are seeking this interim superintendent position, and how do you see your particular skill sets working effectively for us, and why do your skills match our needs?
Why am I interested in this position at this time, and how do I see my skill set matching?
Yep.
Pioneer Valley?
Matching our needs.
And then there was a third part? Or is it-
Working effectively for us, and why do your skills match our needs? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, good evening. It's so nice to be here. And first, if I may, thank you for this opportunity. An unexpected opportunity.
which might lead into why. So as you know from my packet, I am a longtime educator and administrator from the eastern part of the state and recently worked also in southern New Hampshire. I have taught in a range of environments. My first teaching experience was in community-based adult education with Latino women and their children. And from there, I went into public education. And there I have been for the better part of 3 decades. If someone had asked me a couple of years ago, do you think you'll be living out in Western Mass on a little mini farm? I would have said, that's a really nice dream, but I don't see how that is going to happen. And here I am. I think we all thought I would maybe be on my path, one hopes, to a superintendency out in the greater Boston area. And that wasn't my family's story. My family's story was one in which I, as head of household, needed to make some tough decisions. And my daughter was a senior in high school and needed more from me. You all know how all-consuming these jobs can be. And I was fortunate to be working in a place where my boss and the school committee, everybody understood, because I went in the early fall and said, I'm really sorry, but I have to go. And I gave them a few months' notice, and it was sad, it was all good. And I've been coming out here to the Northampton area for about 20 years consistently. I was one of the people who helped, I was a member of the Rocky Hill co-housing community in Northampton, so I helped design 28 units of housing and made my very good friends there. So my poor kids as babies were schlepped to the valley every other weekend, and they slept in more people's homes for a few years. And then I ultimately decided that it was better for my family to stay in Boston, but I have remained good friends, so we've come out here forever. But I'd never come up here, up to this part of the valley. I went to school for a few years in what New Hampshire calls the Upper Valley, but not this part. So when the time came to reboot our family life, I was looking at little farms from the Maine-New Hampshire border, the White Mountains, where we go every year. And I am so happy to have landed in Northfield. I feel like we hit the jackpot. We moved into a lovely old farmhouse. We have made friends. We moved in 3 weeks before the pandemic began. And I probably got 10 phone calls and emails and texts today from people wishing me luck tonight, which, I feel so grateful for that we've been able to make connections in the short time that we've been here, even under the restrictions of a pandemic. So I have been consulting for the past year. I worked up in New Hampshire 3 days. The minute I stopped working in Canton, I was commuting to New Hampshire 3 days a week. They hired me kind of like as an interim assistant superintendent. And then I started consulting for the Collaborative for Education Services. I was down in Hampshire Regional School District this afternoon with their administrative team doing a training. Gosh, this opportunity came up, and I would so love to serve my community in this way. At the risk of sounding, I'm going to be a confident woman. I'm very good at what I do. I'm a very good administrator. I'm competent. I work very hard. I have developed a network of smart colleagues on whom I can rely. I know a lot about teaching and learning. We can talk about different skill sets. Stepping in to serve my community, and by that I mean these 4 towns, would be wonderful. I feel like I could offer something to you. I think I could help you steer the ship. No fireworks, no dramatics. Let's make sure school opens safely. Let's make sure lines of communication are clear. And school committee, maybe there's some thinking for school committee to do about, what long-term you want. And I can give you that breathing room, I feel. I can just create some space for you to think about the big picture and what you will look for in your permanent superintendent, and I can kind of keep the ship going straight, as it were. And that, for me, that I would love to offer that. And I feel like, honestly, it would be a great way for my family to cement itself in our new community. So I haven't talked about my skill set, but I've talked for a very long time, and I'm wondering if my skill set will come up in other questions, or do you want me to keep talking?
I think it will probably come up in other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. What do you perceive as the superintendent's role in the community?
So I do a lot of leadership development with educators and with administrators. And we think long-term about leadership development. And, some of what we say is that the role of the leader is to hold on to the vision. And when things are tough and when spirits are flagging, the leader is never alone, but the leader is responsible for helping people get through things. So, being available to this community, helping people feel good about their school system and where they send their precious children, and ways that the superintendent can do that start from the basics, the first of which is to behave well. Right? So it doesn't mean fancy, doesn't mean highfalutin, but it does mean behaving in public with a strong moral compass and with kindness and with compassion and forbearance and clarity and being able to take some hits, right? And understand that things aren't, even when folks can get personal, the school district leader needs to try so hard not to take things personally. So I see my role as one in, I've been imagining, getting out into the community. And even though, I'm just going to pretend for a minute, if I may, like if I were to get this job, I need to be visible, which means I need to get out and be at some sporting events. I need to be out where the kids are, where the families are, and the pandemic, and let's see what's happening. But, with the educators, building credibility with them, and that doesn't happen overnight. Someone said to me, credibility is built by repeated experiences over time. So with the educators, it is constantly showing up and doing what I say I will do, and doing it well. And when I blow it, because I will blow it at times, being able to say, I blew it, I'm really sorry, here's how I think I can make amends.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Given that our district will have multiple new administrators this year, what are some of the ways you can raise confidence among the staff, students, and the community?
Thank you, Karen. That relates to what I had just begun saying earlier, which is developing credibility. So I'm going to go to teaching for a minute. There are teachers who are super exciting with their kids. And they have I'm painting in very broad brushstrokes, dynamic classroom, and the kids are connected, but the core academics might not be there. And then there are folks who are thinking constantly about academics, but they haven't got the interpersonal relationships with the kids to make it. I'm looking for that connection in a classroom. And I would say the same thing in working with staff, and I mean staff of all kinds, educators in all roles, and our custodial staff, and our food services staff, our bus drivers, everybody. I need to be professional and courteous, and when they receive materials from me, those materials need to be good and look good and be efficient. And when I say I will get back to somebody, I need to get back to somebody by the time I say I'll get back. And our admin meetings need to be excellent. When I do a lot of professional development, one of my internal goals is that I never want someone to walk away from a meeting I have led saying that was a waste of time. Mm-hmm. I don't want that. And I have canceled meetings in advance. If I've not had the time to prepare for them, I'd rather cancel. I don't do that often. Some things I've learned over the past few years that I believe have helped me establish trust and build credibility are developing some serious management skills. For example, I have been the person in a district charged with helping the central office team make their meetings efficient and documenting their meetings and making sure that our documents are well organized and accessible, and we're no longer saving documents that we don't need to save, or preparing for union negotiations, making sure everybody's got the right copy of the contract and all the MOAs. And sometimes those less glamorous aspects of leadership are as important as the visionary, I'm exciting, I can tell you all kinds of great things. I can do that, and I think I can be inspirational with staff. Getting stuff done and being a good manager day to day is at least equally as important. Because if we don't get our work done, we're not moving forward, and we're not taking concrete steps towards our shared vision. I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. What does strong school-based leadership mean to you as an administrative issue and learning strategy? What is the proper balance between school-based management, central office supervision, and school committee policy making and oversight?
I'm going to take notes because there were multiple parts. Do you mind saying that again?
Do you not have a copy?
I don't think I have a copy. Do I have a copy?
No.
No, okay. Do you mind? Thank you.
No, not at all. I can go through it slower if you like. What does strong school-based leadership mean to you as an administrative issue and learning strategy? What is the proper balance between school-based management, central office supervision, and school committee policymaking and oversight?
Okay, thanks. I think I have it. And I trust Nathan, is that right?
Yes. Yep.
That you will remind me if I'm forgetting a piece at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to jump to the school committee policy making. So here's my understanding, and if Glenn Kuchar is watching this, Glenn Kuchar can, email me and say, you got that wrong. So school committee, you set the policy, right? You've got 3 big jobs. You set the policy, you make the budget, and you hire, manage, fire, if necessary, the superintendent. So you make policy. My job as the lead administrator is to devise effective, efficient means of implementing those policies and of gathering people around so that everybody understands the policies and we all have our shoulder to the wheel to make those policies live, okay? The building-based leader, they have at times close to untenable jobs, right? And they are closer to the kids than the district leader. And that was a big shift for me, being in the classroom for so long and then being a full-time mentor for more years in classrooms. Stepping away, that was tough, and I really enjoy working with adults. So the school-based leader must be the on-site instructional leader. They must have credibility as someone who understands what good instruction looks like, can support people in improving their instruction. That is one of their core roles. And they manage something, they do HR, they do money, they do kids, they're like teachers. They wear so many hats. So my role, and this is what I've done for the past however many years, and I mentored some young principals last year and thoroughly enjoyed that practice. My job is to support the principals. I don't want them to be carbon copies of me. I don't want everybody marching in lockstep. My job is to help us understand, and this is with you, so we must have values that are in common, right? And we must, as the administrators, understand the vision of the school committee. And we are figuring out as we go along with yearly plans and then, monthly plans, quarterly plans, what steps are we taking to enact that vision. There are times when it's my job to step out of the way of the principal and let them run their building. And there are times when it's my job to be alongside them as a collaborator and helping them think through dilemmas, but we're doing it we're doing that as colleagues. And then there are instances when it's appropriate for the superintendent to be more instructional or even directive, right? When the really tough decisions come, again, pretending, it's my name on that desk, and I supervise them, and so it's ultimately my responsibility. And We all make mistakes in our job, and part of my job as district leader is to, when the mistakes aren't jeopardizing anyone's safety, to help us all figure out what can we learn from that. We say to the kids, you learn from your mistakes, right? We say that to the teachers. We need to give our principals room to try things out. And if they don't work, that's okay. Let's figure out why it didn't work. What are we going to do next time? So I would want my administrative team to have a shared vision, and that vision comes in part from the policy, the long-term strategic plan, to have developed really nice, strong, realistic school improvement plans. And then we support each other. We are a team, we meet frequently, we meet efficiently, we have documentation of our meetings. There's no time for kind of, oh, what did we say we were going to do? There's no time for that. So we're going to use practices that help us know what we did and what we need to do next. My role is as a support to them, and when needed, again, being directive if necessary. Did I get all pieces, Nathan?
You did, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Consider this scenario. You are proposing a highly controversial program. The school committee is seemingly divided on this issue, and a group has formed to oppose the new program. You strongly believe that this new program will be highly beneficial to the students. What steps would you take to promote your program and engage the community?
Perhaps one of my goals is to take leadership actions that help us avoid that scenario. So if there's, we want to start a dual language program. We want to be the place, I don't know, maybe there are other places around that have a dual language program, but we want to be the dual language program. Well, school committee, you've got to have weighed in, but that type of enormous undertaking requires so much outreach. And with big ideas, whether this is with kids, whether this is with staff, whether it's with community members, families, they need many touches with the idea. So when I'm working with younger administrators, they'll send out an email, and it's a good email, it's well crafted, it's succinct, but people didn't respond. I remind them, that was the first time you threw that idea out there. They're not gonna get it. Some people will. It's okay. That was your first one. Let's talk about what your second, third, fourth, fifth ones are. So I'm not punting, but if I'm doing my job right, we minimize those instances in which people feel like they are not being heard. And so if I may, I'm going to talk for a minute about something called the SCARF threat. And I don't know if your teachers use this, SCARF threat theory. I think David Rock was the neuroscientist who came up with this idea. So we talk a lot about people are afraid of change. This neuroscientist's contention is that people are afraid of loss more than they are of change. And so SCARF, I won't go through all of them, but S would be for security, autonomy, relatedness, fairness. So I would do an analysis with my team. Okay, so if we wanted to bring in a dual language program, before we even talk to anybody outside that room, let's do a SCARF analysis. How could this threaten somebody's security? And we think of how could it threaten a parent's or guardian's security? How could it threaten a kid's security? How could it threaten a teacher's security? Oh, maybe those teachers are going to be worried they won't have jobs. Okay, autonomy, whose autonomy? So there are tools that we can use that help us think strategically so that when we come out with big ideas, a whole lot of foundation has been laid. And again, something I alluded to at the beginning, it can be hard to be out there in front of the public and people are angry. And I've had to be the public face for districts for proposals or initiatives or something that got people really angry. And part of it is a skill, just learning how to let people be angry and knowing it's not directed at me personally, even when people can be a little rude sometimes. It's usually they're scared of something, and it's so much easier to express anger than it is I'm getting a little psychological, sorry. But I think it matters. It's easier to express anger than it is to express fear. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell us about a situation where you were decisive and how it worked out for you.
Decisive. I thought you were heading into tell me about a situation in which you made a mistake. Like I'm thinking like, okay, I have a decisive mistake.
Well, that could be, right?
I have a decisive mistake. Okay, I'll do a decisive one. Of course I'll do one. I don't mean it like that. I'm thinking of one. Okay, this was in an evaluation situation. And I don't know, this is firm. Actually, no, I'm going to do a different one. So I've been a union rep. I was a union rep for many years in the Boston Teachers Union. I'm proud to have raised my kids in a union household. I typically have good relationships with the various unions. So I went to a new building as a teacher in Boston, and it was a teeny tiny little building in my neighborhood. I ended up teaching my neighbors and my friends' kids. I ended up renting an apartment from the parents of one of my students. I mean, it was small town life in the big city. Well, not big city, but. And in that building, the principal was used to getting their way, and even if that meant contravening the contract language. And the faculty kind of went with it, and they weren't happy. They felt, and understandably, they felt like they were being a little taken advantage of. And I was new to the building, and there was some issue towards the end of the year, and folks asked me to speak with the principal. And I practiced in advance, and I knew what I wanted to keep saying was, I'm sorry, but that's not in the contract. And I was a young teacher, and it worked. And I just remained firm, and I remember saying to myself, keep breathing. And I really liked my principal. I really like her. I liked her, I like her. But it was a new experience for her to have someone represent the union in this way and not ratchet up, and there was a little emotion building, and I stuck to my plan. I just kept saying, I'm sorry, but that's not in the contract. And I was so proud of myself that day. It was a real learning for me. Like, oh, you really can plan ahead. You can think about what you want to say, repeating that line. You don't have to jabber, just say that. And I was respectful, and it worked. So that was a moment I guess I was decisive/firm. That was really a learning for me.
I enjoy your answers.
Thank you.
As you lead the district, how will you use data to prioritize the use of resources, including money, technology, facilities, and human capital?
We're in my wheelhouse, talking about data. And data are simply bits of information. And I'm on my soapbox for a minute. There are ways in which in public education we have gone astray, and you're learning something about me right now. We have gone astray with a fixation on numbers, as though numbers in relation to children tell us as much about a child as simply watching that child or looking at their work. Having said that, I am the person now in multiple districts who has been a number cruncher, the interpreter of data, and the person who devises visual representations of information, whether that be money from salaries, whether that be student assessment, whether that be staffing levels, whether it be how kids get into AP classes. So I did an analysis once I was asked to look at AP in one district. Kids got into AP classes via teacher recommendation. There was an override process by which a student and their parents or guardian could petition to get in. And there was some talk at the high school that those kids are they shouldn't be we have too many of those kids getting in, they're not doing well. So I was asked to look at the numbers, and wouldn't you know, kids getting in with overrides, those were kids who were not recommended by teachers. Their scores on both AP exams, 1 through 5, and AP class grades, and you want both of those, you want an X and a Y with, class grades, it doesn't matter which is X or Y, and the exam scores, were virtually indistinguishable from the students who were getting in via teacher recommendation, which raises enormous questions. Really, that's rich, right? Like, what are we doing? Because that means there are kids who are fully capable, and we're not seeing them, and we're not giving them that opportunity. And we're recommending kids who are getting low scores on the exam and not doing well in the class. So that, to me, is super interesting analysis of, that's meaningful.
Yeah.
That has meaning, because then the high school teacher teams can sit and talk and look and figure out, and maybe they don't figure it out for 6 months. I'm okay with that. But that's the type of investigation into data that I think can have a real impact and help teachers and kids.
There were multiple parts to that. So
Sorry.
I'll just, no, you don't have to write. I'll just, so one was money. I love the fact that you began with looking at teaching and learning and how to improve that. So it shows where your heart is. So one was money and technology facilities.
Okay. So money. Well, I did, I think you've got in there portions of my collective bargaining agreement, the IBB packet. So I've done tons of money analysis of different kinds. One that's not in there is that, thinking of the Equal Pay Act that passed in Massachusetts, maybe went into effect maybe 3 years ago?
2018.
2018, okay,
Yep.
thank you. In one district, I did an analysis for them of their custodial and maintenance staff salaries, and that bargaining unit in that district was exclusively male, compared to the salary scale for their food services staff. And that staff in that district was exclusively female, and no one had just looked at these numbers in quite this way. And what I was able to show people was that a young custodian could come in and in their first year make the same hourly wage as a woman who'd been working in food services for 10 years.
Yep.
We just hadn't asked the right questions. And because I've been given opportunities in different jobs to solve problems around information, I've learned some of the tricks of the trade of crunching numbers and representing them. And then because I've worked in a lot of roles in districts, and because I started as a teacher and stayed for a long time as a teacher, I'm able to kind of help people come up with questions that drive important conversations. So that would be a money one. Technology, all the data involved with building new websites and new outreach, that's me. And then facilities, I don't think I've done as much data-wise with facilities. What I have done is helped interpret what would eventually be a $400 million facilities master plan, be the person who interpreted that for the public and created all the public relations materials, so that district, folks in the district could see, this is what this facilities master plan would involve over many years. Here's what happens the first year, second year, third. Here's the times when the votes come in, et cetera. So that's what I would say for facilities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
So given the stress that is in the lives of young people today, and the social, academic, and even financial pressures they are facing, how can educators in general and a superintendent in particular have an impact on the emotional well-being of students?
Well, I'm so glad you're asking that, and I would say I want to begin with that social emotional impact. And I think you have the little 5 points where I talk about my education philosophy, and normally those are these long statements and they're a little boring, and I thought, I just want to say it fast. But on there, I do say, so the culture that adults have in a district and in a building has a direct impact on what happens with the kids. So when there's a culture in which some of the adults are a little afraid of their leader, and that happens, or they feel disrespected by that person, they're walking around biochemically with some hormones in their bodies sometimes that really are not conducive to being relaxed and in the kind of proper neurological state to teach well and to be aware with children. So first, I need to help support all of the good culture that exists here among adults. I want to support that and nurture it. And I do that by treating people well. It doesn't mean I say what they like all the time, but it means, for instance, when a big decision is coming up, I let them know ahead of time how that decision will be made. So that when the decision comes out, they're not surprised by, oh, you didn't tell us you weren't going to talk to, no, you let people know ahead of time. And by making it clear that dismissiveness, a lack of respect will simply never be okay. And it doesn't mean I come down hard, it doesn't mean I'm unkind in return, but it does mean I have to be willing to call things out. And I have to behave in such a way that my folks, my team, really honestly and truly feels like they can come to me and say, I really wasn't happy with the way you did X, Y, or Z. Because if they can say that to me, and my teams typically feel like they can say that, it means that they perceive I have their best professional interests at heart. So I'm going on, but I would say for the kids coming back into school and adults coming back into school, first and foremost, we need to be thinking about our connections with each other, health and safety. The academics will come. They will come, but we're not leading with academics. We're leading with, does every kid in every building feel connected to multiple adults? Does every adult in every building feel connected to colleagues, right? Who's struggling? Because everybody knows usually who might be, and how are we supporting them, adults and kids? We start from there. We'll figure out the academics. That comes. But first is, how are people? And let's meet them where they are.
Thank you.
So how have you built lines of communication with the various district stakeholders, such as your leadership team, the faculty, community leaders, business interests, families, and the media? There's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's good. So I think I really have been fortunate in my jobs. In my job in Canton, my boss was my former boss in Brookline, and she came up with this nifty title, Assistant Superintendent for Special Projects, and essentially what it meant was, like, be the fix-it gal. Come in here, and there are some projects that they needed more capacity, and there's some stuff that needed fixing, and so it was this wonderful opportunity to learn. One of my areas was communication, so I was the person who would, we need to send a press release, or here's a draft of this, can you please fix it, make it good. So what I've learned about communication, what I've learned about communication is briefer is better. What communications on a page look like matters. Let people know up front what it is you're going to be telling them, and then tell them and recap it. Find that nice balance. You don't want to barrage people with emails. And you want to make information you sent out archivable and accessible, so that this will sound but you can kind of train the folks, whether that be teachers or your admin team or parents in the community, that to know, okay, so I send a weekly newsletter. You can always get all the newsletters by clicking on this really easy place on the website. In terms of lines of communication, so this is, I don't want to, I was telling a friend I'd been working on this, and she said, you don't want to appear presumptuous. I don't want to appear presumptuous. I've just been thinking, and thinking like, oh my gosh, if this were to happen like Monday morning, you got to be ready to go. So I've been thinking about communicating with different teams. So I started mapping out, so who are the teams I need to communicate with, and what do I need to find out from them fast? So I've got 10 pages here of like my admin team, the business finance people, the school's principals, the educators, student services, because they do so much, school committee, So I would have to learn what lines of communication have been used in the past here, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and then I've got a decent set of tools for both social media-wise, electronically on the website, and I'm a good writer. So that part, I would look forward to all of it, but I'm good at communicating, so I would look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. How do you keep your school committee informed? And in particular, what's your strategy around issues that are your responsibility, but where the school committee has an interest? What has been their response and feedback, and how do you use that feedback?
As an assistant superintendent, my job is to support my superintendent. And I have worked closely with my superintendents, including with school committees. The most successful relationships that I have observed are ones in which the lines between the school committee and the superintendent are clear, and the school committee chairs, chair, co-chair, vice, are the people doing the majority of the communicating with the superintendent. I have seen things become challenging, I'm being frank, when many members of school committee seek individual time frequently with the superintendent. And the superintendent feels so respectful of the school committee that there can be a reluctance to ask that if the agreement is it's the chairs who are going to do the vast majority of the communicating, it puts the superintendent in a tricky position because the school committee is the boss, right? So I would hope, I would need to find out what has worked here, what hasn't worked here, but I would hope that there would be weekly at the beginning meetings with the chair and vice chair, that you all are funneling your concerns and your information to them. And when needed, of course, there's conversations with individual people, but that we have to be efficient. And we don't want any district leader, I don't want my principals burning out, you wouldn't want me burning out, even if I'm here for a year. Let's be efficient. And that might mean some behavioral changes on my part, it might mean, I'm being really honest, behavioral changes on other people's part, but if there's an agreement about how we're going to do this, let's give it a go. Let's give that a go, and then check in, and if it's not working, let's make adjustments. Am I getting this right? Am I answering this?
I think so.
Or not getting it right, but am I?
Well, I think I like, yes.
Did I not answer part of it?
No, I think you did. You answered some different things, but I
sorry.
liked it. But I think that the thing that I have is about issues that all right, I'll just be clear. Things that you're overseeing that, and the expectation is that you've got it, and then how you then let us know, I've got this, I'm on top of this. Is this like going towards the no surprises doctrine? Yes.
Okay.
The no surprises
Yep.
doctrine, yes.
So I would be your interim. My job is to help stabilize the district and give you breathing room, because you have so much work to do, school committee. Not because but school committees have so much work. You've had changes in leadership. You've had enrollment challenges. You've got the 6th grade. There's a lot of work for admin to do, but you have a lot of policy to think about and a lot of decisions to make. So my job is to keep the ship going. Mm-hmm. If I am finding that there's something troubling and I don't share that with you, that doesn't help us keep the ship going. Doesn't mean I'm calling up each of you, but I'm going to the chair and the co-chair, if we've all agreed, like that's, and I'm letting you know. And we need to stay in frequent enough, like we need to have regular times, and we need to be, I'm sorry if I sound, I don't know what, our meetings need to be good, right? Like we know what we're going to talk about in advance, we talk about it, if stuff comes up, we do it, and then we're done. We document it and we move on, because there's 10,000 things everybody's got to do. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
How do you envision the relationship between policymaking and the budget process?
So both have moral aspects to them, right? Because policy is how we believe, what we're looking to do and how we believe we should behave, and trying to think in advance. What are all the possible scenarios that could take place in relation to X, and spelling out in advance so that when tricky situations come up, we have policy ready to go. The budget is, as people say, a moral document that reflects our values. How we build the budget reflects our values. The budget should move us towards our long-term objectives. And I do believe that the process of developing the budget is one that can increase teacher voice. I would say it should increase student voice, particularly at the middle and high school level. When budgets are developed with appropriate input, it brings people in. And when people have some more knowledge, it can get tricky, but when people have more knowledge, they also understand parameters and they understand restraints. And I think it helps them come to peace with whatever decisions then get made. So I would say, you all make policy. Your policy sets the tone for the district. It clarifies what our beliefs are and how we want things to our processes and procedures. The budget reflects our values about what's important and how we're going to take those policies and bring them to life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The citizens of our regional district demand value for their tax dollars and also transparency in fiscal accountability, which you've spoken to. What has been your history working with municipal officials like a town manager, finance committees, and select boards in supporting your budget?
So I have been the person who helps create some of the materials that explain the budget, some of them, right? Not all of them. My superintendent and business manager might have a meeting with select board, or we go as a team because we want to present a united front. And there have been times when I'm, my superintendent and business manager at this table, and the rest of us from central office are right there, and there are questions coming up, and I realize, oh shoot, I need to make sure they have X, Y, Z, and I'm furiously on my computer coming up with the next number or this, that, and handing it to somebody. So because I've not been a superintendent, but an assistant superintendent, my role has been to give the business manager and the superintendent the tools that will help them articulate what they need in terms of the budget.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was our final scripted question, and I just want to invite you to ask if you have any questions for us.
I do. Let's see. Well, may I share some thoughts instead of a question?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not exaggerating. It's not pap when I say I am so happy to have landed in Northfield. I feel like we're fitting in and we're making friends, and it's good. And I don't know the other towns as well. My daughter started working at Sweet Lucy's when we first came here. She's not there anymore. I don't know Warwick well. My friends have a place on Morse Pond and have invited me to go swimming, but I haven't been up there. I mean, I've been through Warwick. And Leiden, what I know mostly about Leiden is the wildlife management area. I go up there with my dogs, that beautiful one where it's like the Alps. You're on the top of the ridge there, and you walk.
Herons.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, herons.
It's so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst place. My dogs come back with like 30 ticks each. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the blueberry barrens or what. It's beautiful. It's my go-to place when friends come to town now.
Yeah.
So it seems so I've been trying to read, and I've been talking to people, and it seems like, there's been some loss here, right? The shuttering of elementary schools in a small town is painful. Not unlike what happens in a city district when one of our small schools closes. It's very similar because our schools are, that's the heartbeat of a community. So I think about that loss. And I look at the decline in enrollment over the past, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I don't know, charters, I don't know. Again, in the city, the charters, it's been brutal for some of the city schools. It's just been devastating budget-wise, what happens. You've got the 6th grade issue, that question. There's the world language, that idea of, do we do languages in elementary? You have a lot on your plate. You have a lot on your plate logistically, and there's a lot of feeling, I would imagine, on people's plates, emotional plates. And I really do hope that if I'm fortunate enough to be selected, that what I could do is, as I started at the beginning, I can just help hold the faith a little bit for this community. And by I mean the 4 towns. Say, you've got a lovely school district. You're going to find a great permanent leader, right? You're going to find someone great. And for now, let's figure out what you want to accomplish this year. And maybe it's a second year thing, but you've got 1 or 2 years of breathing room. What do you want to do in that time? Can't do miracles, right? That's not what this is about, not miracles. But let's make sure our processes and procedures are good. If there's been any morale stuff, let's kind of build morale back up. And let's start building up a bit so, we're super attractive for candidates. So what I note is that you've got a lot on your plates, and having someone steady, who's smart, and you've got 2 great candidates. So this isn't a question, it's just what I've noticed as I've been reading, and, I would love to be able to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you for your
Good
time and
night.
your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Can we-
I don't know how to technically call a 5-minute break.
Yeah,
Can I make a motion?
I think we,
We just
somebody
need a
moves to take a
5-minute break to
5-minute break,
stretch.
and
Yeah.
we all agree.
And then we'll come back with
Yeah.
our discussion. All right.
I agree.
Great. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We just needed a quick break here to stretch. So now we'll begin our discussion regarding our I will say, I thought they were 2 really wonderful candidates. So, who would like to begin? Mike?
I agree with you, Julie. It's nice to have confident people speaking. It really brings out the professionalism of their trade. I was very pleased with both of them. Outstanding speaking, and obviously they know the craft that they're in. And I was glad to have them here tonight.
I do. I concur. It was nice to witness that, to truly see 2 people that were so devoted and passionate about what they do. And, they both seemed incredibly competent and like they'd both really be devoted to our school district. It's a good problem to have these 2 candidates.
It is, yeah.
They're wonderful.
I appreciated the way Carol, and I love both of them, so I want to hear everyone else to make my decision. I really appreciated the homework that Carol did.
Yes.
And she used a lot of what she researched about the district in her answers. And that was so wonderful for me to see, because that is what you are supposed to do when you interview. You're supposed to look at the organization that you go into. So I appreciated it. And I welcome all your opinions, because my numbers are very close, and I could go with either one.
Stephanie?
I couldn't agree more. My numbers are actually exactly the same. So I'm very torn. We have a very tough decision, but I will say that with Carol, I got more of a feeling of a long-term feeling. I definitely felt very innovative, had really great ideas for ways to improve enrollment, very well-spoken, and I really appreciated just how honest and open she was. I also really appreciated Priscilla. I felt like Priscilla was very communicative, and she definitely seemed very for the interim. So I think, we have two really great candidates. We have a really hard decision, and I also welcome others' feedback, so that way it'll help.
Well, I think it's interesting that you saw that singular difference that I did. One thinking, both know that they're coming into something that they have to work on present issues for at the outset, but one was, seemed like she had potential to stay on, whereas Patricia was very much, here's what you need, and I can fulfill your need and give you the space to do what you need to do. So we have a difficult decision.
Yes, Nathan?
Yeah, they're both really good candidates. We are fortunate, for sure. If we didn't have Carol and we just had Patricia, she would be a great placeholder, right, while we continue the search. I think Carol has the potential of being a long-term solution for us. So I think that's something we need to weigh in our thinking. Do we want to have an interim and then continue the process? Or do we want to hire someone as an interim with then the potential of them being a long-term solution?
I do want to make it clear, that we are looking right now for the interim position, the interim superintendent position. So we did not ask either candidate to speak to the longevity or if they would consider staying on long-term. That would come to fruition, of course, as we begin our superintendent search. But this was primarily it was an interview for the interim position. So I feel like we're not necessarily clear really on we would be making an assumption that Carol would want to be the the long-term, or that Patricia wouldn't. That truly is an assumption. We did not ask that question. So I just wanted to make sure that we...
No, that's good clarification.
Yep.
It did seem pretty clear that Patricia was for a year or two. Like she did state that.
She stated she was for the current role that she's interviewing for.
Right.
Yep. Yep. Alan?
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a great point to raise, in that sometimes when you're interviewing, you're selecting candidates and you make it clear that that they're not going to be interested in the long term. We advertised for an interim superintendent, and one of the questions that I would think one of them might ask is, if I accept this position, which I'm hopeful that either one would, that they say, would that exclude me from being able to continue? So in whomever you select in that negotiations, you might want to, the committee might want to be clear, if that's your pleasure, that either one has an opportunity to apply when you're looking for a full-time.
David and Jim both have their hands raised, so I want to make sure that they get to ask or contribute. David, do you want to go first, then Jim?
Sure. I guess I would say I am ready and open for a miracle. And I acknowledge that we're, and importantly, that we are seeking an interim. we didn't define, sometimes, you know, when you advertise, you say you can or can't be a later candidate. But I think we need more than just a very competent placeholder. I think we got the sixth grade move, Warwick leaving, continued COVID. I think that with the right approach, we can make Tiny Pioneer as viable as I believe Tiny Warwick School reopening is going to be. Nobody went close to that one. You know, I don't agree at all with this non-competitive stuff. When Choice started, it was the actual cost and inflation beat it down to $5,000 not being worth anything. But I'm inclined to want to hire Carol. I think that the approach I heard in moving through, I mean, there's a finer academic point with the sixth grade move that we haven't begun to answer, and that's this the commissioner's letter saying, you know, why you haven't demonstrated this as a benefit? Oh, we're going through all this process now, but we still haven't answered the question. Feels like when I used to be a community development director with contracts for a town, and using lots of grant money creatively, and rather than say, is this good or is this not good, they would say, they'd look at the attorney and say, is this legal? And never discuss the bona fides of the idea. So I really think our situation is not one where we can try to maintain some kind of stasis. We are actively evolving if we're going to survive. And I do agree both candidates are acceptable next interim superintendents. And I also agree that we should not be taking the idea of we should not consider one over the other because they look like better long-term solution. We are advertising for an interim, but I liked Carol's approach.
Thank you, David. Jim?
Yeah. So this is my third go-round for superintendent. And these were as good candidates as I've seen in that time.
He said they're as good of candidates as he's seen at that time.
Oh.
I think that
Can you not hear
working
me?
on turning up the volume.
Can you
Go
not
ahead,
hear me?
Jim.
Okay. Yeah, and I thought Priscilla was extremely competent. And I thought Carol was wonderful. Her energy. I think that she would be able to propel us forward. And I just thought she was great. My biggest concern about Carol is she seemed a little vulnerable, and I'm wondering if this school committee would eat her alive. Oh, God. And I think that's something that we really need to look at.
Not when you like.
Hold on one second. So David has his hand raised. Alan, go ahead, David.
I just want to note that when David Young and Jim Bell find themselves in agreement, that's a good sign.
Thank you both. Alan?
It may happen again, David.
Oh, sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
That was the miracle that you were looking for.
So just to illustrate how close they were, I had reworked the scoring rubrics because we had 12 questions. So the highest category was 53 to 60, and then it went down 45 to 52 and 32 to 44. And they didn't get exactly the same score, but so I put one aside and listened carefully. And then when I was done and I looked, it was a difference between 38 and 44. I mean, it was that close. So it's really kind of insignificant. I kind of look at this from two vantage points, I think. One of them is that we've taken a wonderful action yesterday to get the house in order in terms of the finances. And so as I was thinking about maybe one of the most important qualities we would be looking for in the interim superintendent would be a real strong educational leader that would be able to elevate student achievement, provide assistance in coaching and modeling, professional development. And it's hard to discern between the two because they have such similar experiences and skills. Looking at all the paperwork, I had been leaning toward Priscilla. When I listened to the...
Sorry, it's Patricia. That was my fault.
I think Stephanie started the Priscilla.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Patricia
Kinsella. I was leaning toward Patricia. And then during the interview, I really liked the data that was used and that someone would be looking at, and I thought of some of our circumstances. The sixth grade move. What does the data show? How would we go about that? How would we involve the community? And I thought she had a really good, response to that. I also liked the response about, and I thought, and it elevated the score. Well, my role as superintendent is to do things so we avoid those kinds of, issues, and we're proactive. And we think about engaging the community and vetting it through a lot of stakeholders. And to me, that was a wonderful answer. So both candidates provided amazing balance on their strengths. I think that Patricia might be able to contribute more in the lines of the educational leader for instruction and for promoting good instruction and how the district can be, I like this marketing the school and talking to people and having people know what we have. So I'm looking forward to more of the conversation because it is very close. And ultimately, I guess what we might want to talk about is what is the most important thing? What is our priority? Since you're so close in these candidates, what is the most important one or two priorities that we're looking for? And that might help to guide in your deliberations.
Before I have Renee speak, I do want to invite anyone that's here, unless the school committee objects, to hear your feedback about the candidates as well. Does anyone object to that?
No.
Renee?
Hi, thanks. So this is also my third go-round of watching the superintendent's search and being either in the audience or at the table. So I do bring institutional memory to the table as well. And yeah, I was also on the committee that helped form the questions. So that was, it gave me time to reflect. And at that point, I did say that one of my goals was to listen and hope to hear for someone who had a compass and not a map, because I feel like we are needing that. And I think they both brought aspects of that attribute to the table, and so that was great to hear, and I think either would cover that criterion. But for me, Patricia set a calming atmosphere and sort of, we do need healing, and she spoke to healing. She, I think, would provide the stability and the knowledge, and I also would caution the committee that upon reflection, the last interim was then not an interim. So to take pause, to give yourself think time. And you did take the wise move, in my opinion, only one opinion, last night to move with the direction you did for business manager. So that provided peace and comfort. And again, my mind, a person who keeps careful track and applauds public education and wants to be a part of the solution. So my perspective is Patricia offered that, she just spoke to it and was the total package, and I would, in terms of what we need in this moment in time, and not to have, although I really would want a scout mentality of seeing what's in front of us, yeah, so I really appreciated that about both of them, that I think that they would do that, but just one opinion. Thank you.
Claire?
I have to agree. I felt that with Carol, I was taking more notes, and with Patricia, I was listening to what she had to say. And I felt that she really is the person for the to be the active, interim superintendent, so that we have that time. She said a year, maybe 2. She knows that this is just a short term, but yet she's already thinking about who she needs to talk to next week, coming in. And I just think for me, I felt really comfortable with the things that she said, the experience, how she said it, and to be more proactive and not letting problems arise. So I just thought that experience-wise, I think she has more for us for what we need for right now, as just an interim.
Thank you. Kevin?
Good evening. I also was on the committee and creating the questions, and one of the questions that Pat answered that I really liked was, and I think Claire just hit on it, was, talking about how do you resolve issues and how do you solve them, and it was basically like, instead of actually solving them, it's let's not get there to begin with. Let's do it the right way as we move forward. And that, to me, showed the leadership quality that I think we need here at Pioneer. I think both candidates did a great job. I think both candidates could do a good job as superintendents in the school. But I also think it's important to look at, who we are as a community. And it was also clear that even though Pat has only been here for a short time, she has embraced this community, and hopefully that will continue to shine. And that goes a long way here. As we all know, we're all connected in this community in many different ways. We're not just, on the school committee, but we're parents, or we're teachers, or we're both, or we're all three. So I think that's really important. And I think moving forward, I think the committee did a good job in saying, hey, let's go for an interim and see where we go and move from there. And I think that's the decision we should say. And we don't have to jump into anything. We can put someone in for this interim. And the best thing about having an interim is it's like the longest interview you could ever have. And that's a really good way to look at things. So just wanted to put that forward.
Thank you. David, your hand is raised.
Yes, I think that answering the question of how do you handle conflict and dissension, and answering, well, my job is to make sure that doesn't happen, was pretty fuzzy answer, and it made some people feel good, but we have a reality, and we have some thorny issues. So I don't doubt that she's got skills in that regard, but it did not answer the question, and that answer was no substitution.
I just want to respond to that quickly. I felt that she wasn't saying that she wouldn't deal with when difficult things come up. She gave concrete examples how you can lay a foundation and you can have your ducks in a row. And she gave concrete examples as to the 6th grade move, world language, things like that. And perhaps if a little information goes a long way, right? And I like how she said how you put the feelers out first. You begin with laying the framework, and then you keep coming at it if you decide that that's the direction you want to go in order to have buy-in. So I just had a slightly different impression of her response to that question. Renee,
Well, nope.
And then Robin, and then Stephanie.
Okay, sorry, I'll be brief. So I think at another point in another question, it resonated with me that she mentioned failure, and that was also when we developed the question, something I really wanted to hear about. And so for me, someone who's willing to be in the arena and fail is somebody I want by my side and get dirty with me. So that really felt good, and I feel like she addressed it in a different, she said prevent the problem, but when the problem exists, and/or if she was part of the problem, she would take responsibility and she would work toward moving things forward with her eyes front. So that felt really good to me.
Thank you. Robin?
I really felt that both the candidates were, just like everyone else, both really qualified. I did want to just point out one thing, though. I did especially like that answer about, oh, we'll try not to get there. But I also want to point out that Carol answered that question in a different way when she said that, you know, when things came up and when decisions had to be made, before even going anywhere, she would talk with all the stakeholders first, that she would have done all of her research first. And so in that way, I feel like, I think to me, like I thought about that as one of my big things, and then I thought, wait a minute, she had preempted that. She might not have answered the question the same way. She answered it the way it was asked. But so I was impressed with, I don't know, I really liked them both. I do want to say one more thing. If somebody else wants to go while I look for it, that's okay with me.
You want to go, Stephanie?
Sure. So just kind of follow up on that. I will say that going back to the interim piece, I did like that Patricia had already mapped out who she was going to talk to. Like, if this happens on Monday, I already know who I'm going to talk to. I already know what I'm going to do. So I did like that she had that piece. I also love that Carol did her research. And again, I'm still torn. But I do like that Patricia basically sounded like she was ready to go. Let's go. I already have a plan. So I am still torn.
Claire?
I think Patricia did her research. I mean, she talked about the sixth grade, and she talked about foreign language, and she's been at school committee meetings before. So, I mean, I think she's done her due diligence, and she, you know, has really placed herself in a spot where she has done her research.
I wasn't saying that she didn't do her research. I just was mentioning that Carol had done it too.
Robin?
The safety and the joy. I don't know, that resonated with me. I know my children have graduated, but my grandchildren are coming in. And, you know, as a person that hated school from kindergarten on, and I did, I'll be honest, I hated it all the way through. I just did. To have somebody talk about joy in school, and to me, I don't know, I liked her energy. Both of them, fabulous. But I really liked Carol's energy. I just looked at it as somebody that could just, you know, I can just see her like driving off to all the schools, and I think they all would, they both would. But I liked her, I liked her concentration on safety and joy. That really did hit with me.
Raina?
I know, they're both, keep waffling back and forth. I feel like they were both really strong candidates. And I also felt similarly that I could see Patricia more as an interim, and you know, and Carol, I kind of got like this long-term, more visionary kind of feeling from her. The warmth resonated with me as I found myself taking fewer notes when Patricia was talking, just listening and absorbing, and I liked that. Because I do feel like that would be a really great thing for the district to have that kind of presence. And I liked that she talked about supporting the adults in the building as a way of supporting the children, because I mean, it was so true what she was describing. And it's like, okay, wow, if the administration, you know, the admin team is supported and the teachers are supported, like, then the kids are going to do fine. Like that's, you know, going to really benefit everybody, and it'll benefit academics. So, you know, those were some of my thoughts. You know, like I said, I think I'm feeling that Patricia was a slightly stronger candidate, but again, it's hard. But
Kathy?
I could concur with all of you in terms of, this is the third round of superintendents that I too have participated in one way or another, and you are blessed with two excellent candidates. The one thing, as someone who's in the building now seemingly every day, is finding someone who could start yesterday, who can bring depth and breadth to our situation. I particularly was struck when Patricia, who started that?
I'm sorry.
When she talked about loss. Some of this very unexpected loss, some of it expected because people are going on. Pioneer has really been walloped in the last several weeks. Sorry. So I look at that as something that is very, very important right now.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm a note taker myself, so I filled up my pages here.
Yeah.
I almost, it's an odd feeling to even discuss them both in this way, like to vet them against each other, because they both truly are amazing candidates. I didn't expect this to be so hard, and I'm grateful that it is, honestly. So this feels a bit uncomfortable to me, but we have a job to do here. I did feel that Carol had more of a script, where she had, a prepared statement, which I appreciate her doing her due diligence. It felt almost to me like we could have inserted school name in certain places when she's going off of a script like that. Where when Patricia came in, she was by herself, apart from her what she plans to do on Monday if she is, has the opportunity. So in that sense, I felt more comfortable with Patricia. Carol spoke, her educational background and her love of teaching and her profession shines through.
Yes.
So much so. It's really inspiring to honestly hear her speak about her work and how much she cares about it. Again, I felt that it was more from a general sense, where with Patricia, I felt like she knew as much about the district, or perhaps more, and she was willing to kind of peel away the layers of the onion already and say, listen, you guys have had a hard time, and to really kind of bring that to the table, even from in the interview process, was admirable. I love, just on a personal note, I love our community, and I really feel as though to have the superintendent living in our community, like, just makes me a bit giddy. I think that that's truly just such a testament to, this is where we have our homes, and this is where we live on purpose. And so to have someone have that kind of the same commitment as we do is really powerful for me. And she talked a lot about, holding these 4 towns and respecting each of them and helping to navigate these tough circumstances. And she said she'll hold the faith for the 4 towns. I just love that that philosophy. On the other hand, I also feel that Carol, they both spoke to the budget being reflective of the beliefs, of the core beliefs. Like, how amazing is that, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that with both of them, we have the opportunity. I feel like they would both say to us, okay, what do you value? What do, what do parents value? What do teachers value? And let's make the budget reflect that, because I feel like where we have gone awry recently is, how about we do this?
Yeah.
And for wonderful reasons.
Right.
But it's the execution, it's the planning, it just showed me it's a lack of an understanding of our core values driving our budget, right?
Right.
So, in that sense, I'm just tickled. I'm so happy. I truly feel like we can't go wrong, but I certainly, for the reasons I said, feel I'm just more in favor of Patricia. However, I'm also excited that this is an interim position, and they both could apply as we search for the long-term superintendent position. So, that's where I stand. Oh, Jane.
I was not going to speak, but I can't resist.
Can you just state your name for us, Jane?
Jane Dutcher, Chairman of the Finance Committee in Bernardston. So, as a negative, I must say that Miss Kinsella did not mention Bernardston very strongly in her discussion of the four towns. So I will decide whether or not I'm personally going to hold her responsible. I was really impressed with both of them, and it's a tough decision. I'm glad you guys are on that side of the table, and I'm over here. I was put off by Carol having prepared statements. And I won't go into that any further. Her answers were great. Some of her ideas were fine, and she would not be a bad superintendent here. However, there were two things that Priscilla said that really struck me. Patricia. And one of them was that the lack of respect and dismissiveness will not be tolerated.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to forget what the other one was. Be firm in looking ahead, the lines of communication that she talked about, and the fact that failure is fine. We learn from it. And that's the two things, the failure and the dismissiveness, that really elevated her in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Raina.
So I just want to reflect and acknowledge that I'm hearing from the administrators who've spoken and from the teachers who have spoken that they felt that Patricia was a stronger candidate. And to me, that says a lot, and that kind of informs my decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I meant to say that too. That really speaks volumes for me. I've said many a time, you're the experts, and it's our job to support you in the best way we can for the kids, to advance the kids' education. So, David, your hand is raised.
Yes. Yes, it is. I don't agree. I think that the teachers have run Pioneer District for far too long. And I think that the outright warfare when Ruth Miller was here was that she wasn't letting that go. So I don't really know if it really matters. I think maybe, but I think there's a new broom will sweep clean, and maybe in both instances we've got one. I did not take Carol's manner of speech. I took it as a highly organized mind from, and maybe somebody a little nervous in this presentation, but I didn't I mean, but God bless her if she could have memorized all that, and it was just rote answers, but I didn't get that impression. But I have had in my school committee career, parents and others say, because, I've been over my years oppositional to staff members of the school being on the school committee. And teachers don't have a voting slot on the school committee, but at one point we had 3 employees of the school otherwise on the school committee, and I really objected to that. So I'm kind of just baseline oppositional to the teachers really have a strong preference, and it informs me too. Thank you.
Anyone else with discussion? Mike?
I'll move that we put Patricia forward into interim superintendent.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Robin? Any further discussion? Okay,
Yeah,
Stephanie?
I really don't want to vote no
Winslow,
on anybody.
Northfield.
Could we?
Yes.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
Hey, I was trying to have discussion.
Nancy
Can we?
Schwartz, yes.
Oh. Thank you for
Hello?
letting me know.
Hello?
David, go ahead. You had just spoken, so I didn't think you had your hand raised again. Sorry.
I don't remember any longer.
Oh, all right.
Oh,
Then
yes,
we'll
I do.
continue with our.
I would like to not vote no. I would like to vote yes. So why don't we go through and vote for one or the other candidate or abstain? I really don't want to vote no. I'm going to welcome whoever is elected, but I don't want to vote no on the candidate that might be the next interim superintendent. We only have 2.
David,
don't have
we
to
have
do
a
it this way.
motion. You
Yeah,
didn't make-
I object.
It was seconded, and there was no further discussion.
There is further discussion. I'm talking. Would people consider this option instead of ramming this way? It's just procedural. We have 2 candidates. I want to vote yes for somebody. Whoever wins the yeses is going to be the candidate anyway. I don't want to vote
I can clarify.
no on Patricia. I think I know how the
think I
meeting's
can
going.
clarify.
Procedurally, though, we had a motion, we had a second.
But I think I can clarify his point, and I've seen a lot of committees do this over the years. So there's a motion on the floor, and you're going through and you're voting on a candidate. And let's say 3 people voted no, or a couple people abstained. And then the vote carries because it had the majority. It's not unusual for the chair to then ask for, entertain the same motion, because it's already passed, but you want to send the candidate a message that it's unanimous, that they have the backing of the full committee and their decision. I think David's point is that by without knowing that that's going to be a procedural strategy that you're going to use, it might put him in a position to vote no or abstain, which he would rather eventually have everybody on board to support whichever candidate you're selecting.
We've
So-
already all had an opportunity to speak, and I've heard actually everyone here say that both candidates were strong and wonderful. I don't personally believe that that is necessary. I'm willing to hear other opinions on it.
Well, why don't we finish the vote? I was hoping he was going to say subject to negotiations in the motion. I would add that as a friendly amendment but at any rate, Alan Genovese Warwick, yes.
Michelle Jeruso, Leiden, yes.
Raina Dastu, Northfield, yes.
Robin Knight, Leiden, yes.
David,
David Young, no.
And Jim?
Jim Bell, yes.
And Julie Burke-Northfield, yes.
And Mike Townsley, yes.
I would like the committee to entertain another motion to appoint Patricia as the interim superintendent, subject to negotiations, and that we do a roll call vote in the hopes that it's an unanimous vote.
So your motion is to do a roll call vote for unanimous decision on Patricia.
Correct. And the only thing I
Wasn't the
added was
motion to
subject
offer her a
negotiations,
contract,
'cause-
negotiated contract?
Say that again, David?
Wasn't the motion to offer her a contract? Alan?
No,
The
it's
second vote,
to,
and I skipped,
it's a motion to appoint Patricia as the interim superintendent, subject to negotiations.
All right, I second
with
that.
the intent to ascertain a unanimous vote.
I second that.
Did you say you seconded that, David? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Townsley, Bernardston, yes.
Alan Genovese, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Jeruso, Leiden, yes.
Rita Dastu, Northfield, yes.
Robin Knight, Leiden, yes.
David?
David Young, yes.
Jim?
Jim, yes.
And Julie Burke-Northfield, yes.
Passes.
Piece of
The
business.
motion passes. Great, thank you all very much. And I'm not quite sure, now I've lost track of when the next meeting is. We've had so many in a row.
Don't we have other business
You have
to vote
another
on?
That-
business.
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Oh my
do.
gosh, thank you
Yeah.
so much
I wanna
for
vote on
keeping,
it.
yes, thank you so much for keeping me in line. I was ready to burn rubber out of your nose. Okay.
I like that idea.
Don't give me a chance.
I like that thought.
So under unanticipated business this evening, or other business not anticipated at the time of posting. So our school nurse has revised the COVID-19 health and safety policy. So this is as of today. I'm going to pass it out to everyone here. It did get emailed to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay. Here, do you want to pass some down?
So Julie, are you saying this is the exact same wording that was emailed to us today?
There is, if you were to click on the Google document that you received in
Yep.
the email, you
Yep.
would see the updated version from earlier. Yes,
Okay.
so this is a live Google document. There is a small change from earlier today, but it would be reflected.
On the Google.
So, I think maybe the best thing is for me to read it, I guess. So, the Pioneer Valley Regional School District is committed to providing a safe environment as schools reopen during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to public health experts, one of the best ways to stop the spread of coronavirus and to keep members of our school community safe is the use of face masks or face coverings. Therefore, in accordance with guidance from the Center for Disease Control, CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, the following requirements are in place until further notice. This policy may change and update in accordance with COVID-19 guidance from CDC, Mass Department of Health, and DESE as it is released. This policy replaces any previous face covering policy. So for face coverings, they will be required indoors for all students in preschool through 12th grade, regardless of vaccination status. Will be required indoors for all adults, including educators, staff, visitors, and volunteers, regardless of vaccination status. Will be required while utilizing school transportation. Will not be required outdoors or while eating. Additionally, Exceptions to mask requirements will be made for those for whom it is not possible due to documented medical conditions or behavioral needs. Students will be supported in their individual circumstances and developmental levels in order to comply with mask wearing. Bandanas or neck gaiters are not permitted. Face coverings must secure with ear loops or bands and must cover the mouth and nose. Face coverings must comply with the dress code as stated in the student handbook. A student's mask or face covering is to be provided by the student's family. Staff members are responsible for providing their own face coverings. However, the district will supply disposable face coverings for individuals who arrive at a building or board school transportation without one. Violations of this policy by staff will be handled in the same manner as other violations of school committee policy. Exceptions to this policy under certain circumstances, such as for students with medical, behavioral, or other challenges who are unable to wear masks, must be approved by the building principal in consultation with the school nurse or local board of health. In some instances, face shields or physical barriers may provide an alternative to face coverings. A written note from a physician is required for a requested exemption. Parents may not excuse their child from the face mask requirement by signing a waiver. Visitors in violation of this policy will be denied entry to the school district facility. And then on the back, she includes links for guidance statements. Mike?
Make a motion. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead if you're going to do it.
No, I have a question. Sure. Is this the full policy now? Because my question to you, or that we had spoke about, was I was concerned about testing. I did look at the DESE document, and it is recommending testing, pool testing or whatever, and I'm just wondering, other districts are doing it.
Yes, so this is just regarding.
This is just for face, okay. It's not gonna
so
we're
Carla
still-
can speak to, I believe that there will be, she's working with.
Okay, then I make a motion that we accept the face policy.
Second.
Say that your motion one more time.
I make the motion that we accept this policy as written based on what you've told me, that this is just a first step. Yes, thank you.
And you second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, discussion. Claire, did you?
The only thing that I wanted to say is that I know that you received the email that the union, both unions, the PVREA and the PVASP, have sent documents to negotiate about a safe school entry, and that we are going to start negotiating next week. I would be very surprised. Who would have imagined that we would be going back to school without masks? Personally, I think it's wonderful. So, we're hoping that next week we can get it going, and that it's very simple and quick, and, everything is in place so that everybody's comfortable with the beginning of the year.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Any other further discussion?
Stephanie Winslow, Northfield, yes.
Karen O'Neill, Leiden, yes.
Nathan Swartz, Warwick, yes.
Mike Downsley, yes. Bernardston?
Alan Genovese, Warwick, yes.
Michelle Girousso, Leiden, yes.
Raina Dasty, Northfield, yes.
Robin Knipe, Leiden, yes.
Jim?
Jim, yes.
You said yes.
Okay, thank you. And Julie Burke, Northfield, yes.
David?
No, David isn't there any longer. All right, so this COVID-19 health and safety policy as of August 19th, 2021 has passed.
And just to clarify what Rob was talking about, we will be doing policies on testing and contact tracing as well?
Yeah, so Carla is working on, the contact tracing has always been part, as it was last year. And then she is working on guidance surrounding testing, so perhaps we'll be able to offer that right in the school. She's working on that.
Yeah, a lot of schools around the district, around the area have done that.
Yeah.
It's very successful.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, everyone.
When's our next meeting?
Hello.
I would have to look. It would be the regularly scheduled September meeting. Yes.
Yay.
We don't anticipate emergency.
Oh, we need
before.
to, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I make,
Oh, sorry. Oh,
can I make a
Stephanie.
motion to adjourn?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second? No discussion? All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, any opposed?
No.
Okay, perfect.
My bed is calling.